Today's webinar, Developing Multiple Enterprises, an Effective Growth Strategy, is the first of a three-part series called Sharing SE Ontario Stories, and is brought to you by the Canadian Community Economic Development Network on behalf of the Rural Social Enterprise Collaborative and the Liaison Project. And you can see from the logos on the screen, get back to those logos, our many partners who are dedicated and inspiring partners who've been working with us on these projects. My name is Paul Chamberlain, and I'm with CCEDNet Ontario, and I'll be facilitating our discussion and introducing our two feature storytellers. Their bios are both now on the CCEDNet website promotion page where you registered. The SE Ontario website does also contains inspiring innovation, a link to inspiring innovation, and to other SE Ontario resources and stories. This series is part of a larger webinar series funded through the Ontario Trillium Foundation to support social enterprise infrastructure development in Ontario and to support rural social enterprise. There have been past sessions on the Inspiring Innovation Report, which was Ontario's first comprehensive social enterprise survey, and another on the seontario.org site, which is the provincial showcase of an online community for social enterprise. We've also had excellent webinars on developing rural social enterprises, and we're in the middle of a series of French webinars, and those will be ending on November 26th, when we'll be presenting asontario.org, the French version of the site, which will be launched just before that. So there are links to the report and to previous webinars on the SE Ontario resources section, as well as on the CCEDNet site. The goal of the Sharing SE Stories series is for us to learn a little bit more together about what it takes to develop successful social enterprises in Ontario by really taking an in-depth look at several models of social enterprise. And today we begin by hearing about two organizations, Group Convex and Teamworks, that have successfully grown the impact of their work by developing multiple social enterprises. I'll be introducing each presenter and asking them each a few questions about their organization, and then it'll be your turn, and we'll open things up for discussion. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Carolyn Arcand. Carolyn is the Economic Development Woman of the Year, was in 2008, and Trico Foundation Social Entrepreneur of the Year in 2011. She is currently enrolled in the Master of Community Development program at UVic in BC. Not sure how she finds time for that. She is an active member of the Eastern Ontario Training Board, where she lives and works. And the main reason she's with us today is because she is the co-founder and executive director of Group Convex. So Carolyn, it would be great if you could start by sharing three aspects of your work. If you can begin by telling us a little bit about Group Convex and all the social enterprises you run. Then let us know how you started and why you started and how you grew. And then finish up by letting us know some of the advantages of the model that you've chosen for growth and some of the challenges that you faced as well. So welcome, Marilyn, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I guess by now I'll be able to go through the presentation myself with the slides, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm assuming Matthew will that's perfect. Thank you very much, Matthew. Okay. Thank you very much for being there, everyone. I want to start by acknowledging that providing webinar in English is not my strength. I'm French speaking, therefore I really hope this won't impede on the transmission of information, and if so, please let me know by typing the necessity for me to clarify in the little chatting box there. Matthew, I don't see that I have the opportunity now to go to the next slide. Thank you very much. Paul, I will probably answer your three questions, maybe not in the chronological order, but let me know at the end if I need to be more specific on certain aspects. So the beginning of Group Convex, well, it all started in the early 2001 with an organization. It's a community organization called Valoris. They're providing social services, and despite a lot of efforts in supported employment, it was not possible for a large number of people to obtain or maintain employment in the mainstream job market. We have to acknowledge that the socioeconomic situation here in Prescott and Russell was back then and is possibly still today even more challenging. It's a challenge for people with a lot of experiences and backgrounds and transport possibilities to obtain and maintain jobs. So you can imagine living with an intellectual disability, how challenging it was. So we investigated in Europe and Western Canada and in Quebec some models, and we've all together with community partners engaged in the development of a new corporation which has become Group Convex in 2004. And the way the structure was designed was that it would not be a single social enterprise, but a network of social enterprise for many reasons, which I'm going to talk to you about in a little while. So Group Convex is a small not-profit organization, and it's governed by a board of volunteers. And right now we have 9 micro-social enterprises. We used to have more. Some have come, some were closed, some were reopened or new ones were opened. And right now 70% of our workforce is people living with an intellectual or a learning disability. And 60% of our budget is income from sales. And we are not a transfer payment agency, so we are not receiving recurrent funding from a government on a yearly basis. So it's the income from sales, as you can see, and the margin of profit, it's very important. And we have an average of about 165 employees annually. However, given the needs and the capacities of the majority of our workforce, most of them are working part-time. And Group Convex has access to diversified funding sources as well. So our mission is to create valorizing jobs for people of Prescott and Russell who face employment challenges, and the vision is to have a sustainable market niche allowing people of all abilities to work. So right now under the umbrella of Group Convex, and by the way, the name Convex was chosen because when you look into a mirror, into a convex mirror, your image tends to increase. So right now we have restaurants, which is called Café Bistro in Rockland. We have an antique refurbishing shop in Hawkesbury, another coffee shop in partnership with the Old Jail Museum in L'Orient. We have an indoor-outdoor maintenance service, a packaging facility, a wood shop, a agricultural services cooperative, another restaurant, Café Le Plateau in Hawkesbury, and a recycling center in Hawkesbury. Now, going back to the early 2000s, and when we've negotiated with Valoris, which is the social services agency, we've made some agreements with them. Otherwise, it would have not been possible to create Group Convex. So one of the agreements was that the executive director of this new corporation would be a paid employee of Valoris, which is me right now. So as the executive director, there are no costs associated to my role for the businesses. As well, another agreement was that one of their day centers was to be taken over by the new corporation in an attempt to transform it into a social business. This one is Hawkesbury and Peak, and I can tell you right away that we have not really succeeded in terms of our vision to really bring some change to the extent that, in my opinion, this is not yet a social enterprise, but it's an entity under the umbrella of Group Convex. Another of the agreement was that 50% of the board of directors of Group Convex would be constituted of representative of Valoris. And this makes sense in a way that Valoris, because it has been involved in the design and in the implementation of Group Convex, they need to safeguard the interest of their vulnerable clients who are employees at Group Convex. And finally, the fourth agreement is that for each person living with an intellectual disability that is being employed at Group Convex, Valoris would provide a support to cover portions of social costs. And this was determined by a tool with Mrs. Ann Jamison from the Toronto Enterprise Fund, and it's called the Business Cost Recovery. So we were able, the new corporation, Group Convex, to negotiate this financial assistance with Valoris with a validated tool. Now this is the organizational chart of Group Convex. So the board, myself as the executive director, and there are two divisions, the business division, and each business is provincially registered. Each business has its own provincial business license, and all are owned and managed by the not-for-profit Group Convex. So right now as well, where we maybe failed a little bit is that we were not able to bring in upper into the hierarchy some people who are living with an intellectual disability. They are all, for the moment, working at the entry level. So each business is managed by a professional in the field or an expert in the field, and they also have team leaders working for them, or foremen or forewomen, and then the laborers are the target employees of our social businesses. This might not be the latest, I realize here this is not the latest, I'm sorry, of my presentation. But I'll leave it this way and explain a little bit of what are the advantages of being a network of various social businesses rather than a standalone. The way the accounting is done is that all social businesses are considered into our accounting as a division. So some social businesses may end up the fiscal year with a surplus, and others may end up the fiscal year with a loss. But the beauty of being in the network is that those businesses who are doing better financially can support and maintain the business during the challenging times open, and therefore it's a possibility for us to maintain the jobs. Whereas if it would have been as a stand-alone business, if for a couple of years this business would have had some losses, it would have not been possible to keep this business open. Also, being in a network allows one business to purchase from the other. So when there's a meeting at the wood shop with some, let's say, some buyers from Rona or Canadian Tires or Home Hardware or other clients, and we host a little meeting at the wood shop, then we can have a catering prepared by one of our restaurants. So it's B2B, business to business, among the network of social businesses. And also another advantage is that because Prescott-Russell is a rural territory, and it consists of various very small communities and small villages of a couple of thousands of people. Well, and because there's no public transportation as well, having some small businesses located in those smaller areas allows people who are living in these areas to get to be closer to their work. So it allows numerous possibilities for people of all abilities to have access to job opportunities in their community. I think that do I have some more time, Paul? Let me know.
Sure. A couple of minutes will be sure.
Yes? Okay. I think that one of the challenges that we have right now is to have a better balance between our workforce who are living with a disability and our workforce who is not living with a disability. So right now the ratio is 70% of labor force who are living with challenges, and we need to have a better balance. Because we're facing growing pains right now and the productivity needs to increase. So this is one challenge. Another challenge is the socioeconomic situation, the economic situation, specifically in the eastern part of the territory where we're facing a lot of businesses closures. And of course, this has an impact. People who used to came and have a lunch at our Main Street restaurant, Café Le Plateau, at $12 for a meal, this has become a luxury right now. So we need to be creative and innovative and look at our what we offer to the customers and constantly adapting to the changing world of the economy around us. I guess this is the same thing for every business people as well. So I think I will open it for some questions right now.
So we'll wait until, Carolyn, if it's okay, we'll wait until Doug has presented as well, and then we'll have
Oh, okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's right. Thank you.
All right. So Carolyn, thank you so much. That was wonderful. You packed a lot of information in a short time, and I know that we've really only just scratched the surface of Group Convex, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you in our discussion time. And so I'll now turn to introduce Doug Dalhouse of Teamworks, who is our next presenter. Doug has been recognized for innovative partnerships and health-related social enterprise development by all three levels of government. He previously ran several companies, including a used clothing retail company, a scanning microfilming enterprise, Thunder-Bay's first blue bag recycling program, and he managed several dumps that are run by the Ministry of Natural Resources. So a varied entrepreneurial career. And of course, he currently supports the Consumer Survivor-run peer council for Northwestern Ontario. And he is supervisor of the Supported Employment Program at St. Joseph's Care Group, and that work includes Teamworks, which of course is what he's about to tell us about today. And similar to Carolyn, he'll give us a brief profile of what Teamworks is today, how and why it grew as it did, and then some of the benefits and challenges that entails. So over to you, Doug.
Thanks, Paul, and welcome everybody. Paul, I can navigate the slide myself then?
Yes.
Great. So we'll just start right off the bat here, give you a little bit of a, and I got a few pictures to show here too. Teamworks Co-op is actually now one of the largest worker co-ops in Ontario. So it's a worker cooperative supporting consumers of mental health services through empowerment, self-direction, and the provision of individualized employment supports and services. It's a worker cooperative, I said, established back in 1998. I think we had at that point, so I wasn't working for the care group at that point, they had two unique business divisions, I think a car wash and the coffee shop, that initially were part of the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital, and as part of the movement of patients to becoming outpatients and clients and integrating into the community, it looked at use of the co-op model and development of a social enterprise to empower clients to have a little bit of self-direction and ownership in a business to move forward and ultimately to help their mental health recovery. So our target population are those with mental health and now addictions challenges is an outpatient, part of an outpatient program. And the key is, hey, we provide employment and training opportunities, and there's a direct correlation as a social determinant and health determinant. You, with those with mental health challenges, get a friend, get a house, get a job. Boy, that quite often can make a huge impact on those with serious mental health challenges. Currently, as I said, we started with 2 enterprises. We now have 9 different enterprises forming the TeamWorks Cooperative. So we're incorporated as one cooperative or one social enterprise, and it's an enterprise with a share capital. Okay, so the members actually have what's called a par value share in the company and can work in any one of the 9 different business units. So we didn't go ahead, and later on I talk a little bit about why I think the co-op model is a good use to a business model to use within the social enterprise area, in that we didn't have to incorporate each one of the little individual businesses, so they form part of the overall cooperative. So as I say, we have approximately 30 members, but the fact that it is now embedded in part of our overall employment options program, the vocational program, we also, instead of separating the company out, kind of folded it in, protecting its identity and empowering the clients to ownership, but at the same time, it allows, and I'll put my St. Joe's Care Group hat on, various referring clinical referring teams and community agencies to refer clients to the vocational program to get an initial assessment. We call it an employment action plan, and then from there, some may end up with the cooperative. Let's move to the next slide here. Again, who we serve here. Out of the 100 clients we have in the program, 30 are members of the cooperative. 20 have moved on to what's called time-limited placements, and this is one of the reasons, and later I'll talk a little bit about our partnership with St. Joe's and why they support the enterprise. It allows our vocational rehab officers to quickly engage clients in meaningful work and training opportunities. Clients would otherwise have a very, very difficult time finding these placements within the community. So we have some clients that are there more long-term as owners, some clients that are engaged in the business units to get that training, to get that work opportunity, to get the confidence back, to get that peer support to get from each other working together, but to move on then to maybe schooling, volunteering, or a job in the community. Any one of our members, if they want to work in the community too, that's up to them. They can still maintain their share in the company and then work part-time or take a leave of absence and move back. So what we've done is again, embedded the social enterprise within a larger vocational program, and it helps myself out and the board with the TeamWorks co-op as far as funding is concerned, and ultimately looking at the overall value of the social enterprise. It's not just about the jobs for the members, it's more than that. Just to give you a feel for some of the businesses that we do have, this is our Good Times Cafe. So it's a coffee shop that kind of works also as a bit of a, we call it up here in Finn, the Keskus, the meeting place, and the staff. We're still situated at the old Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital site. We're an outpatient program, not part of the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital, but we're part of the outpatient services. But it's a large facility, and does help out with overhead costs. So we've maintained our business activity here with the goal within a year or two we're probably going to be moving out into a new facility in the community. But for staff, clients, visitors, volunteers, it's a great place to stop and have a coffee. A lot of peer support takes place with this and within this enterprise. Another new one we started up a couple years ago is a Scanworks, a scanning company. So currently converting approximately 1 million pieces of paper, which are the old deceased records for the St. Joe's Hospital site, to the electronic medical record. Another operation we have here is our new Greenworks garden. We have a community garden / market garden, a partnership with the Regional Food Distribution Association, currently being reviewed by Wilfrid Laurier University for best practice as far as high schools, institutions developing their own properties to incorporate food back into the food system. So in our case, 50% of the produce that we grow ends up with the Regional Food Distribution Association to be distributed to food banks throughout northwestern Ontario. Another 25% is sold through our cafe in the hospital sites we have here through mini markets, and then another 25% is sold to the food and nutrition services and sold in the cafeterias we have, and also it's now going to be incorporated into what is being served to patients. And so we're quite excited about this new initiative. We grew over 2,500 pounds last year, and it just gives you an example of something where we're it is definitely a social enterprise. It's something that initially we started, had high, I call it program value or client value, didn't have that high of a economic business value. We're always kind of balancing the two here, but over time now, it's generating some very good revenue. It's a great little initiative to look for additional funding, but it's got high programming value with respect to the therapeutic benefits that our clients and members realize from working in the garden, and the fact that it has a huge impact on the in the community, and we really leverage it from a marketing perspective. Yeah, give you a little feel for the scope and size of the different kind of stuff we're growing there. The other enterprises, before I get on to the startup and kind of why we've grown over the last 10 years, we also have a shredding company, a textiles recycling company, a packaging company. I mentioned the coffee shop. We have a car wash, the Greenworks garden, as I talked about, the scanning company, and a woodworking shop, as well as we provide labor services for movement of clients from one home to another, or if one department within the St. Joe's Care Group is moving staff from one area to another, we'll move their desks and whatnot. Again, Teamworks does that, not the program. They're separately incorporated, and they bill for that service and are reimbursed for the services provided. So as far as, the startup and growth, I talked about when we started, and again, it was initially, meeting the needs of the inpatient population that were now outpatients back in 1998, and we continue to meet those needs, not just those with mental health challenges, but also those with addictions. And, oh my gosh, the power just went off on our place here. Gonna have to, I guess you guys can still see it down there. Oh, we're back up and running.
We can still see it, so let us know if
good. The power came back on. So, and it also, troubleshooting. Tell you what, I'll just continue on. I do have a hard copy here. It's also moved to empower versus enable clients. It's a big thing. What I found with the co-op model and the worker co-op model was the fact that we are empowering the clients through ownership, and it's huge. And what we find in mental health and addictions with respect to client care, it's no longer a top-down kind of, hey, you do this, you do that. It's really about self-management, and I think the fit with the co-op model and allowing owners, clients, now owners, to have a stake in the business is huge. With their own president, their own VP, I act as more of a consultant to the business. A key thing and a key message, obviously, with any social enterprise, I mean, there's one thing if you're an entrepreneurial nonprofit generating revenues through activities, or a standalone social enterprise like a Value Village, the Canadian Diabetes Association and the relationship with Value Village, or even the Salvation Army, who have separated out their kind of used clothing end of things. Well, those are there to just generate cash and revenue, almost like fundraising for the larger nonprofit. In our case, we have a clear social outcome here, and that's about the recovery of our clients. And ultimately, we have demonstrated that to the care group, that in fact, by the care group supporting the enterprise through basically taking care of the cost, our overhead costs, any of our businesses, any input costs, so that's the wood, the labor, and whatnot that goes into creating a picnic bench, or the materials and fertilizer, whatever is needed for our market garden, are borne by the cooperative. But my wages, for instance, the overhead costs for the building, heat and hydro, that's the contribution by the care group. Furthermore, if I'm looking at a new initiative, I can develop what's called a decision brief. And if, in fact, we need some capital dollars to start a new initiative, I can demonstrate that this is going to be the impact on the clients we serve. So that's maybe an increase in clients served, an increase in the quality of training and employment opportunities that we can provide. We then have been very successful in getting some capital dollars. So I'm very lucky here with the care group. Now, they've been extremely supportive of the enterprise, but they see the value. The same token, these are clients that, in fact, if they didn't maybe have that opportunity to work in one of these business units you have, or move on to a job in the community, in all likelihood, the probability of them decompensating increases, and that means it may mean a new hospital stay, or now a client is now a patient. Well, we all know full well, once you become a patient and you're hospitalized, the costs are astronomical. Another thing that's really helped us with the startup and growth is the fact that we did incorporate the business as a cooperative with the shared capital. The model itself, I do feel, does support growth. I mean, it allows us to redeploy resources, so our clients, when they get on, and members, they know they may work in the car wash when things are busy, but when things slow down there, and if things are picking up in our shredding operation, where we can move the members around and clients around. They also have that opportunity to get some diversity, and a lot of social enterprises focus on one thing, like a workshop. Well, that's not for everybody. In Carolina, it was nice to see you really diversify what you guys got there too. So it gives those with barriers to employment options, which is extremely important. But at the same time, we've also got a diversified revenue streams from 9 different businesses, and we all know full well you have your ups and downs, and if one business is not maybe cutting it from a financial standpoint, but is high value from a programming client standpoint, we have the ability to maintain that. There's a point we have to make a business/organizational decision here, but because of our structure, we've been able to maintain some of these enterprises like the Greenworks Garden, which in fact now has turned out to have real good programming value, client value, and is getting very close to being a break-even proposition for us. Another thing when I started, and I've been with them for 10 years, the first thing kind of did was, give it all a new paint job. I mean, really starting at developing a marketing plan globally for the social enterprise, and kind of promote that throughout the community, throughout the organization that I work in. We have 2,000 employees here, and I did a lot of internal marketing too, and really to demonstrate the value of the social enterprise and really kind of mark that to the community. That really helped then when I'm looking at funding and support from a financial standpoint to continue on with this. But also just the way we brand things. We brand each individual business with its own kind of logo, but then tie that into the TeamWorks logo with being business-based and client-focused, and really started getting out into the community a little bit more. And we have found that, that's increased our business activity. It's gotten the business community on our side. It's increased company, for instance, Unigas approached us with a Greenworks Garden, said, here's a couple grand here, guys. We want to assist you in the labyrinth we were developing within the garden, and an Aboriginal healing garden. So they funded it and provided all the volunteers. Well, in part that's because we're out there now in the public, and people see what we do, and we're kind of in your face a little bit more. Other than that, gang, the last slide, Paul, if you can go to that one on the members' perspective, because again, I have to apologize. I have a failed connection here. On the last one, and I just always put this kind of in, because at the end of the day, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about I think it's our biggest challenge. It's all about, these couple testimonials here. I like the second one there, is employment in the co-op gave me a fresh start. The sports and skills I obtained gave me the confidence to make my own decisions on what type of work suits me. So a very direct correlation to employment and training and recovery. We don't lose sight of that in as far as the balance, which is the final slide, social versus business value, the mixed mandate that we all have in social enterprise. And, I use that gauge there, and it's like, if it's kind of going too far on the social side, then you know what, and you're really depending on your partner or external funding, or truly, if you look underlying it financially, who's paying for the wages here for the supervisors? In our case, our instructors are paid by the care group, not through the enterprise who support the clients. But I'm very upfront about that. So that's a cost that's outside of the social enterprise. But you got to keep your eye on that. So if it's too much on the social side, well, then you are now probably more of a training program, not necessarily a social enterprise. But the flip side is, quite often you get so excited about all this money you're potentially making on this new initiative, and you lose sight of the fact to hold on here. We really looked at the health and safety of our clients. What is the impact politically in the community here by us going and competing for market share, which there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same token, you've got to keep that in mind if it is being subsidized to a certain extent by a secondary source. We're always faced with that little bit, so it's keeping that eye on the gauge there and balancing the two. And I think there's no right answer here. It's always going to be a challenge and a struggle even with some of my instructors that support the business, they quite often will ask me, well, hey, are we a business or are we about the recovery of the client? And my response is, we're both, and that's why we're here to kind of keep that gauge somewhere in the middle.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug. That's great advice. And I had, as we open up for the discussion and open the phones up, I had asked both Doug and Carolyn to sort of share one key piece of advice, and Doug's is about sharing keeping that balance between the social and the business values. And I know that's something that most social entrepreneurs, always have that balancing act always. And I know, Carolyn, your sort of piece of advice. Do you want to just speak to that? Carolyn, are you on mute? You have to press *6 to unmute. So Carolyn had said that.
Yes, I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, for Group Convex, with our experience, one of our piece of advice is that for us here in Prescott and Russell, in order to do business and be perceived as a loyal competitor, it was important for the social businesses not to be at a certain arm's length of our partner agency, which is a not-profit and charity. Group Convex is not a charity. We are a not-profit, but we don't sell our products at a lower price. We're very competing with the prices of the market. And since we do receive some fundings from other sources such as Industry Canada or Ontario Trillium Foundation to build our capacity, it's important that we are perceived by the business community as a fair competitor and not as an unfair competitor. And to be incorporated apart from the Valoris, which was the social agency that launched and implemented the Group Convex structure back in the early 2000s, that was very important. So again, my advice is that if social agencies are looking into developing some social enterprise, I think there is a need, and it's imperative to step into the business side rather than stay into the social services side. This is my piece of advice.
And that's great advice, Carolyn. Thank you so much. And I know we've already had a number of questions in the chat box, so we'll begin with a couple of those. And Matthew, I believe we now have the lines open so that we can hear others. And as it says on in the screen there, if you want to ask your question over the phone, please just put your hand up, as in go to the top, the menu across the top, and the little person with their hand up, just click on that, and then we'll know that you have a question to ask.
I'm okay here, Paul, now, so I can see the chat box there.
Great. Good to have you back fully online there, Doug. And we'll start. There were a couple of questions. I think the first one was actually from an anonymous guest, but that's great to have somebody there who was just asking Carolyn whether each of the Group Convex social enterprises is registered as a not-for-profit or as a for-profit business.
They are registered as not-for-profit. And they are not incorporated as not-for-profit, but provincially registered as not-for-profit. And the owner of this business is Group Convex, okay, which is Group Convex itself, the corporation. It's federally incorporated. The main reason is our proximity to the province of Quebec. First, so being federally incorporated, even if the business has a business license in Ontario, since it belongs to Group Convex legally, we can, in some trades like the wood shop and the ExpressNet, we do maintenance, we do painting, we do moving services, so we can work on the other side of the borders. And also, like the wood shop, we export some of our products to the States. So again, being federally incorporated allows our provincially registered business to do business outside Canada.
Yeah, that's a good clarification and an important one. And Carolyn, I know had a quick question for Doug, or clarification. Just, Doug, I know you had been mentioning clients a number of times in the course of your presentation, and just wanting to clarify, when you're talking about clients, are you talking about the people who are working in the social enterprises, or are you meaning the people who are the customers or consumers of the social enterprise? And maybe just clarify that.
Yeah, sure. No, when I refer to clients, clients are those working in the social enterprise, and the rest are customers of our services and our products.
Great. And that's a good clarification too. The folks, a group from Sierra Community Ventures who had posed a question, and they're asking, just went off my screen, just to explain the financial relation that each of you have to your partner organization. So the social services or care group, and how that impacts the social enterprise workers' salaries, or is it a subsidy, or so. Yeah, so just what's the financial relationship between the sponsoring or partner organization and how that impacts the workers' salaries?
Okay, good stab at that. There's no direct contribution in our case from the care group to the worker salaries, and we call it a patronage return. Under the Co-op Act of Canada, they're allowed as individual owners to then decide how much they want to pay themselves. So it's basically a return on the revenues generated, and they do that through, and again, all our jobs that we have within the enterprise are part-time. They maintain the Ontario Disability, through the Ontario Disability Supports Program, their income benefits, but because they're working, they get what's called a work-related allowance. I think it's about $100 or $150 a month. They typically pay themselves about a $5 an hour patronage return, but every quarter they get a distribution of the net profits of the business. At the end of the day, it works out to very close to around minimum wage. But because it's a worker co-op and they have an individual stake in it, this is how we kind of, I guess you could say, get around the wage route and the MERCs, and it provides a lot of flexibility in the enterprise. And at the end of the day, if our clients are saying, hey, I want to get out there and make $15 an hour, that's when the tie-in with the program and my vocational rehab officers kick in to say, hey, continue working here, making a little extra money, and let's go look for a job. Even though I consider the social enterprise community, but it's an alternative form of employment, then look at more conventional forms of employment in the community. So we provide that option for them. The financial contribution, as indicated earlier, from St. Joe's, again, is individuals like myself and the instructors are part of the employment program, so we're not funded through the enterprise for that. And again, the overhead contribution, which is fairly substantial, you know what I mean, the overhead costs. I mean, we probably need, when we move into the community, I'd say 12,000 square feet alone for the enterprises we have. So that's you know, when you look at the heat, hydro, and rent for that, that's fairly significant. So it's a fairly significant contribution from the care group.
Maybe I can go now to answer the question, Paul, if you allow me. At Group Convex, depending in which business the person is working, there are three remuneration plans. One is an hourly rate. So, for instance, the employees working on the conveyor at Recycle Action, they're paid, we have a salary grid, and each year there's an increase. So it's an hourly rate, and it's according to the employment standards. So I guess at Recycle Action, it doesn't start at the minimum wage, maybe a little bit more, and each year there's an increase. In some other businesses, like at the wood shop, there are some departments where they are paid according to the productivity. So we, for instance, we have contracts with Zenith Wood Turner. They are a manufacturing industry of the little wooden gingerbread that you purchase at Rona or at Home Depot, and we are a supplier for this mega enterprise, and we are paid by piece. So we calculate our overhead, and the rest are a possibility for the workers to be productive and earn according to their productivity. So usually it's based on unit. So when they're working on the on-shred machine, as an example, if they produce 2,000 pieces during the day, well, they earn the equivalent of this. And if they produce less, well, they're paid according to their productivity. And the third plan is contractual based. I think this is similar to the cooperative plan that Doug was talking to you about. Harvesters is a cooperative. It's designed this way. So when Paul is going to clean up some stalls at an equestrian farm, as an example, then we bill the client or the equestrian farm owner a certain amount of dollars for each buck stall, and we calculate the overhead, and again, the rest is it's going to the employee. So if it takes Paul 15 minutes to clean one buck stall, and he can clean, 4 into an hour, well, he gets 4 times the value of one. And if not, so this way of remunerating the employee, it's I guess it's fair, because if a person is not working fast, it's unfair to have our customer or our client, who is a farmer or an equestrian center owner or whoever, to pay additional cost because the person is not fast enough. So this way, it's fair for our customers and it's fair for our workers. So these are our 3 remuneration plans.
That's very interesting that you have different plans according to the different situations, and so that's great to know.
Yeah, if you allow me to maybe clarify as well, because the question was surrounding the wage subsidies. When we hire new employees, regardless if they live with an intellectual disability or not, we check if they are eligible for us to receive a wage subsidy. Well, for 2 reasons, because financially it's an incentive for all employers, not just for a social enterprise. And also it allows us to, during the training period, if I would say this way, to evaluate the competency of the employee. And while this employee is not totally up to par with our expectation, it kind of helps us sustain this job beyond the training portion. Usually, I don't know in your portion of Canada how it works, but here in Prescott and Russell, usually the subsidy is like maybe 20% of the salary for a period of 8 weeks or something like that. So it depends again on the person. And at Group Convex, contrary to Doug's organization, we don't deal, and we are not aware whether or not the person is receiving disability support. We don't deal at all with the personal stuff or the budget stuff of our employees. They are our employees. We pay them, and they take care of reporting or not, if they receive or not other support, financial support.
Okay, so slightly different model. For sure. So there are a couple of related questions from Julia and then from Andrew Holton. And so Julia is asking about how are you marketing your social enterprise or social enterprises, and then Andrew is asking both of you about whether you encounter negative stigma associated with the fact that you're social enterprises, and if so, are there ways that you work to overcome this? So these are both kind of communication, marketing questions, and maybe Doug, you can have the first go at answering that one.
Sure. Well, as indicated, I mean, whenever we can get positive and good PRs is one of the best ways to go, and that's through your radio, TV, the press release we did, for our Greenworks Garden and getting some politicians down there, and really playing up I'll call it the social end of things, the warm fuzzy, and getting that message out and the positive impact what you are doing is having on the clients we ultimately are serving, and the ultimately positive impact it has in the community. So that's, you're getting free advertising and all that. So I tend to use that as much as possible. So we're front and center in the community, in the paper. We do some conventional, with our brochure. We're just finishing off our website. For our car wash, we went out and we're kind of a regional car wash here, and went. The members of the co-op went out and did some door-to-door advertising and dropped off flyers. So we use that kind of guerrilla marketing approach to things. As far as the potential negative backlash that could possibly come from operating a social enterprise, we've been lucky enough that for all our businesses, and I do think you do have to be careful looking at your marketplace and what kind of market share you've got. So we have a shredding company, for instance. Well, the big ones, Iron Mountain, and there's some, North American companies here that are billion-dollar companies that technically, I guess you could say we're competing against, but we're probably got about 2% of the market share. And I'm not going to go out and recommend to the board and to the social enterprise that we should be going and trying to, put this huge shredding company out of business, But at the same token, we do a little bit of marketing. I think we are no threat to them, and where possible, we like to partner with other businesses too. So we've been lucky enough in some cases to do that with some businesses. And so I think you have to be aware of the potential backlash, but you just have to be prepared to say, hey, if all the businesses in our community were willing to hire tomorrow the clients that we have registered in the employment program, well, then maybe we wouldn't have a need for the social enterprise. But the fact remains is that's not going to happen. And for many of our clients, some don't want to work in the mainstream businesses out there and want to have that kind of peer support side of things working together. So we're meeting two kind of needs here. So at the end of the day, if there's been the odd business said, well, you guys are subsidized a little bit here, and A, we're not a threat to them, and B, say, hey, this is the positive impact we're having in the community in Northwestern Ontario, and quite often that's all you need to say. And if you're willing to hire all my clients in the shredding operation, then we'll stop the shredding operation. But that's not the case.
Okay, and Carolyn, in terms of your take on the marketing and the stigma.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Doug. Like in an ideal world, there would not be a need to serve vulnerable people. There would be no employment insurance and no hospital, and it would be an ideal world. At Group Convex, we have developed over the years we're very focused on being part of the business, and we are very we are competing. However, like we do have a shredding business as well, but locally there's no competition. In fact, before Group Convex was operating mobile shredding services with this shredding truck, people and businesses and organizations, they were calling in Montreal or Ottawa to have Shred-it come into Prescott and Russell to fulfill their shredding needs. So now what we're competing with Shred-it in Prescott and Russell. However, we are also competing with smaller and local and people from the place who have owned and risked their mortgage to launch their own restaurant. We are competing with them, and it's very important, the relationships that we have, to be fair competitors and do work in partnership, and Doug raised that as well. We're partnering with some local businesses to do business and partnerships with them. We celebrate their success as much as we celebrate ours. We are members of every Chamber of Commerce. We do the commercial fairs. We rent our booths. We purchase some advertisement in the newspaper. So we're trying to be in the league of the business people and establish great relationships with them as well, and include them as partners. And when there are some openings for new business, we are there. But yes, there is a stigma, and I guess for from our experience, we have to deal with them on a basis, how do we say that? One case at a time. Fortunately enough, we didn't experience a lot of those stigma or concerns from the business market so far, but I had personally been in positions that we went for a coffee with one of our competitor and talk, and it's a matter of having a transparent dialogue and increasing the awareness of the population as well. So I totally agree with Doug in that establishing relationships is most possibly the best way to prevent those stigma from happening.
Okay, so yeah, some good ideas there in terms of for others in terms of marketing, as well as how to work with the stigma issues. And we really do need to wrap things up right now so that I can share a few final points. And I know that there are a couple of questions there that we didn't get to answer. And Doug and Carolyn have generously agreed to provide responses to those. And if others of you had questions that you didn't get to, you can just email them to me directly. Them on, and then we'll put the answers together, and we'll post them, and we'll email everybody so that everyone can get responses to those questions too.
Sorry, Paul. So you're going to the remaining questions. You're going to email those to us, and then we can respond via email, or
exactly.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and we'll put them together. So as we wrap up, I do invite all of you to truly make seontario.org your online community. The group Convex and Teamwork stories are both there, although we actually have a few more points to add to the group Convex story, which we'll do before the end of the week. So you may want to wait till Monday to really check that one out. If you are running a social enterprise in Ontario, please do post and share your story and fill in the survey to the SE Ontario directory that's going up soon. We'd also love you to suggest any valued resources, to share any social enterprise news, and or an item for the question of the month. You can also follow us on Twitter and subscribe to the YouTube channel. As an additional resource for today's workshop webinar, we have also put some links to a number of other organizations that run multiple social enterprises that you may want to check in, and those are currently on the CCEDNet registration page where you went to register, and we'll make sure that those go on SE Ontario as well. So do join us next Tuesday for the webinar on shared space with Common Roof and The Forge. And we'd like to just finish by thanking the webinar funder, which is the Ontario Trillium Foundation, as well as our RSEC and liaison partners, and my colleague Matthew for keeping the technology going. And of course, a huge thank you to Doug and Carolyn for providing really inspiring and educational stories that I think we've all learned a huge amount from. And thank you to all of you for being such active participants. Great when there are more questions than we have time to answer. Please do take just a moment to complete the 1-minute survey that is probably being emailed to you even as I speak. We appreciate your feedback. And the webinar recording of this webinar will be posted on our website within the next couple of days, well, next few days, and we'll make sure that we send you a link as soon as that's available. So thanks, everyone. And again, thank you so much to Doug and Carolyn for amazing presentations.